Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues. So as we are here today for the first creative session that's on the digital transformation in the field of waste management towards the circular economy. And we have quite a distinguished speakers and panelists. So I would like to invite all your kind attention, and please, you can provide your questions in the chat so we can also have more interactive section towards the end, during the Q&A. So without further ado, let's start the session as the time is quite limited today and we have speakers from all over the world. So that is very important, and the time zones and so on. So we don't want our distinguished speakers and participants to wait. So without further ado, let me first, for the keynote speak, invite the Vice President of Knowledge Management of Asian Institute of Technology, Dr. Naveed Anwar, for the keynote speech. And Dr. Naveed Anwar has a very long-lasting career with a focus on the digital technologies in the field of engineering, but more important now also in the circular economy and so on. So at that note, I would like to request Dr. Naveed Anwar for his keynote speech, please. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stark, and dear participants and panelists. Good afternoon and evening to everyone. If I may share my screen. Give me just a second. And please let me know when you can see my screen.
All right. Yes, so we can see. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mustak. So as Dr. Mustak mentioned, that today we are talking about two very important topics at the same time. And first one, of course, is digital transformation, which is a common thread amongst a lot of developments these days. And it starts with business, with technology, with industry, and goes across almost every sector. And today, especially, we are concerned with the application of technologies, especially digital technologies, in waste management, as well as in circular economy, that will help transform this very important aspect that is currently the focus of most countries, as well as organizations and people in the end. So I think participants here are quite familiar with the topic in general. Just to emphasize the three important key numbers. First of all, we need to see that this is something that is really important, and there is a target for that. And the target is to increase the circular economy by circularity of the global economy through waste management and other measures by almost twice the current number. The second one is the acceptability of this approach, or the awareness of, or the importance of circular economy and the management of the waste. And this has increased considerably over the years. As you can see, from 12 points is now to 90%. So people are very aware of this aspect, and people are willing to work in all aspects of the industry as well as the consumers. And finally, there is the indication of the economic value and the business sort of case for handling this very important aspect of the economy. So these are some of the key things that indicate that we need to work on this circular economy and economic growth through proper waste management through various phases. Now, if you look at the value chain in circularity and the digital transformation of that, we are all aware that this involves many steps, but some of the key steps will be that the products are, obviously we have the production, and then the products are consumed. And then after the remaining part of the products, there is the collection of the waste, and then there is a selection and sorting, and part of that is reused, part of that is recycled, and part of that is plowed back into the production cycle. So the circularity continues. This represents several distinct aspects that are interconnected, and any process which has many many steps, independent steps, and also they are interdependent and interconnected, is ideally suited for digitalization in any industry or in any form. And that is also the case for waste management. So if you look at the production, obviously smart manufacturing, robotics, and many other technologies are already making their way to make the production greener, make the production safer, and also to create products that can be recycled. So it starts from that point. And then over there, already many technologies are being used by the producers. Then comes to consumers. And for the consumers, one of the important things is the awareness that they are buying products that can be recycled or that can be, that can be part of the circularity. So awareness of the consumers is very important. That can happen through social media. Also, we can track the production through blockchain, and AI can also help to identify which products are most suitable for recycling. And we have apps for everything, as you know, and there are ways to look at the barcode, look at the QR codes and get information about the products. So the application of the digital technologies is already quite advanced in the consumer sense. And then comes the waste collection. And this is an area where a lot of work is being done. As you know, robotics are making a big inroad into this one, automatic collection of waste, self-driving vehicles to transport them automatically, collection and the transport is being automated. And then the use of sensors, IoT in various forms in terms of the smart bins, in terms of informing where the waste has been collected, and also using several sensors along the way in the transport cycle. We are getting digital information from there. And obviously, all of this is also being fueled by the 5G and other communication enhancements. And then we move to the select and sort. And once again, here, this is mostly done manually in many industries, even now, but robots, automatic sorting, also IoT to use the sensor information, and AI and vision are also becoming important tools. Camera-based sorting, and then identifying the objects and putting them into appropriate recycle systems is now becoming more popular, and also also it's probably economically more feasible in some of the waste products. And then we move to the reuse. And when we use the reuse, then obviously the use of the blockchain, which starts in the manufacturing and during the consumption, and also the use of e-trading and e-tabs can help to identify which parts can be reused in what way. So that information can be tagged and processed along the value chain. And then for recycling, once again, the robotics can be used. Automation is becoming important, as well as the use of other electronic tagging that can be done to the products. But these are the IT applications and each of the steps. But the biggest advantage of the digitalization or digital transformation will lie not only within each step, but basically on integrating these steps together. So that is where we can see the maximum benefit, which can start with the policy integration. We can also start with the data mining from various steps, because if we can tag the products properly, then a lot of data is generated along the way, which can be collected and analyzed. And then we can have dashboards indicating, how much product is being produced, how much consumed, collected, sorted, reused, and recycled, and going back. So this kind of information could be very useful at many levels, at the policy level, at the economic benefits level, and so on. And of course, for this one, cloud computing and data storage is essential, and it's already becoming a standard in many places. So the integration of the data and integration of the process from various steps is quite important, because every step is handled by different industry and and governed by different policies. So it's quite important that these are all integrated digitally, and there's a common framework that collects that information. And in the end, AI will help to make sense all of this data and make each step of the process more efficient and feed the information from that backwards as well as forwards. So this is the overall application of the digital technologies in the value chain and circularity. And if you look at some of the examples, like for example, this publication by European Environment Agency, you can see how they have identified the use of robotics in the process, and also given some examples. So this is a good document which gives some good indication on how much application has been done or is being done, and the use of artificial intelligence and neural networks in terms of machine learning, also to learn from various data that is collected and information that is processed, so that the things can be automated, including self-driving of the street sweepers and refuse trucks and so on, and also to identify where and what time the collection will be done. And then Internet of Things is obviously the use of sensors is now becoming quite common. Most things that we use these days have sensors in them. So including RFID and other devices can be connected to that. And then the process can be automated quite a bit. And then from that, of course, as I mentioned, cloud computing is very important, because that is where a lot of the data can be stored, computation can be held, and it can create dashboards for various users, policymakers, as well as advocates of the policies and so on. So this is quite a good overall system once it is fully connected through various steps. And then data analytics will provide the analysis that is needed, once again, for research, for policy development, for driving economic benefits, analysis, and so on. So all of these things are already happening to some extent in various countries and in various parts. I'll just give you one small example from AIT, for example. We are working on many aspects of using technology for waste processing, and one of them is using cameras and drones to analyze the floating plastic, and also to identify plastic even on streets and so on. So this is one of the applications that could be done, and it obviously can be then connected to mobile apps and so on. So this is just an overview of how the technology is permeating this very important process, which has several steps, but at the same time is fully circular and connected. So with that, I would like to thank everyone, and I hope the discussion by the experts in various fields will be helpful and fruitful in identifying and enhancing this whole entire process. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Mushtaq, and back to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So Dr. Naveed Anwar, Vice President of AIT, for an overview of an intensive set of the digital technologies and their interconnections to improve the waste management and the circular economy. So thank you very much, sir. So now we move to our speakers, and we have reverse order. As 3R, they break the myth. 3R break the myth that instead of passing on good habits from seniors or parents to the children, this is about the good habits passing from children to the parents on the source segregation, on waste management, and so on, because of the environment education, the social media, and so on. So taking advantage of that new convention that youth are going to enlighten us with the 3R, with the apps, and so on. So first we want to bring a youth icon, and then we will move to our experienced speakers. So without further ado, let me invite Ms. Sayaka Ono for the digital applications toward plastic circularity. She is a PhD candidate at the Asian Institute of Technology. She has master's from University of Sussex Institute for Development Studies and bachelor's from Keio University. So over to you, Sayaka.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Dr. Mushtaq. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Just a moment. So good afternoon and good evening, panelists and participants. Thank you very much for having me in this session. I'm Sayaka Ono, who is doing research about the plastic waste management at the Asian Institute of Technology in Thailand. In this presentation, I would like to present the overview of digital application usage with some examples, especially for the plastic circularity. This is today's content. First, I'm going to talk about the background information related to digital apps. Then I would like to introduce some case studies. After that, I will conclude this presentation. Firstly, let me introduce the concept of plastics value chain in order to oversee the life cycle of plastics. This is the same concept which Dr. Navid has mentioned at his presentation. We can consider the life cycle of plastic by dividing it into the 3 stages: raw material production, manufacture and use, and disposal and end-of-life treatment stages. Especially at the manufacture and use stages and disposal and end-of-life treatment stage, the mobile applications seems to be mainly used. We can see the several keywords which are usually mentioned behind the mobile digital applications. First is about Internet of Things. It's a merging of the internet connectivity with any purpose, allowing by directional data flow and smart product. The second is about the big data. Big data means the generation and computing of large data sets, regardless if it is structured or unstructured. The third is about robotics and automation. It's already been used widely in the context of digital transformation. It can help human activities with their diverse moves and flexibility. Finally, artificial intelligence. It can be a kind of buzzword for the last few years, but it can be used for the decision-making or problem solving based on the algorithm-driven technologies. Then we can see the development of technology which can be a basis of digital transformation or mobile apps at the previous page. The next question is, what is the potential capacity of plastic circularity which we can obtain by the usage of digital apps? This is one information from the paper in India. In general, we can estimate the new business opportunities for adopting circular business models, which is worth $4.5 trillion in the world. Currently, there are 4 kinds of waste that can be potentially considered as an opportunity: wasted resources, wasted capacities, wasted life cycles, and wasted embedded values. More specifically, the digital application can contribute to substituting the waste resources by increasing the usage of recycled material from the waste. Secondly, recovering waste embedded values can be achieved by promoting reuse and recycling. Thirdly, if we share or co-own products, we can monetize the wasted capacity. Finally, resale or repair service can lead to lengthening the product life cycle through reselling or recycling. Then currently, how digital apps are used. The following 6 applications are introduced in this presentation. At the consumption stage, digital apps are used to reduce the plastic consumption. At the end of life stage, the digital applications are used to sell or buy the used items for reuse, or it is used for recycling or exchanging the plastic waste. Even after the waste littering, digital apps are used for cleaning up the plastic waste or monitoring the waste management situation. Let's move to the details from the next slide. First example shows a digital application can promote the reduction of the single-use plastic package by providing refill service. For instance, Bototo, which is used in Japan, allows people to buy beverage with their own bottles. With the usage of their service, customers can search for the registered cafes or restaurants in order to buy unbottled products near their location. Also, as for the light example, in Indonesia, Circularity, which this application delivers a refill service of consumers to their stops without plastic packaging every day. With this application, people can order the product by deciding the date and place for the refill service on the mobile apps. The consumers can buy their consumer product through this application. This company has collaborated with major consumer companies, including P&G or Nestle. Also, a digital application provides an online platform where users can sell or buy second-hand products. This has been really common already. Actually, eBay is widely used in more than 180 countries now. We have a similar online marketplace using digital apps such as Mercari or Poshmark. These applications can contribute to so-called reduced or reuse among 3R. On top of that, a lack of information or sometimes confusion related to recycling information can be one of the barriers which prevent people from doing recycling their stuff. In order to overcome this barrier, a digital application can help users to recycle their items by giving information related to recycling. For instance, the Recycle Smart, which is used in Australia, helps people to recycle more effectively by giving the information related to recycling based on their own database. Also, they provide the service of taking and carrying users' items to the recycling centers, which is owned by the municipalities. One of the interesting approaches of this company is that they collaborate with local councils in order to bridge the gap between the recycling facilities and the residents. Especially in developing countries, mobile application helps to connect the recyclers and the waste pickers. Especially some examples show its support for informal sectors monetization. For example, the mobile apps called Octopus in India can help to connect the informal sectors and the industry in order to exchange the informal sector's collected waste. The company says more than 6,000 waste pickers registered for this service. In addition to that, this example is interesting because it can provide a service for brand owners' take-back program system. For instance, it has collaborated with one beverage company in order to increase the PET collection rate and decrease the rejection rate of PET bottles for recycling by connecting the local waste stakeholders and building the recycling ecosystem. One of the important points here is that the data gathered through the mobile apps helps to establish this recycling ecosystem. Even after the return, the mobile app is used to incentivize people to clean up the return. For instance, the CleanCoin, which is a startup company in Israel, gives a virtual coin when people clean up the waste. People have to take a photo of evidence that they pick up the waste and bring it into the bin. Then once their uploaded photo is approved, they can get the virtual coin. These virtual coins are redeemed for the products from participating businesses. The app seems to get a large attraction. According to the company in November 2021, more than 16,000 people have already registered for this service, and 1,200 active users they have it every week. As for the last examples, the applications are used to monitor the returning situation. For instance, as the application called Pillika enables users to visualize the act of data collecting. This visualization can motivate to conduct cleanup efforts all over the world. With app, people can share their cleaning activities through social networking services as well as the company. According to the company, it has already collected waste from more than 110 countries. The waste map, which is a light example, have a similar function to Pillika. This mobile app is used to monitor especially the pollution along the river. In conclusion, like mentioned in the first part of the presentation, the new business opportunities for adopting circular economy business model is, in general, are estimated at around $4.5 trillion globally. This is a huge number, needless to say. Under this situation, digital apps may play a significant role in our seizing this opportunity. We can observe many practical examples of digital application towards plastic circularity at the consumption stage and end-of-life stage in the plastic value chain. From the example, we can see digital application are used at the consumption stage in order to reduce the plastic consumption, especially single-use plastic. Also, at the end of life stage of plastic products, those applications are used in order to sell or buy used items, also for recycling, and also those applications are used to exchange the plastic waste. Even after the littering of plastic waste, some applications are used to clean up the plastic waste by incentivizing the people, also to support to monitoring the waste management situation. This is all my presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm looking forward to listening to others' presentation.
Thank you, Sayaka, for bringing a comprehensive set of the apps in the context of a full value chain model for the plastic circularity. And so that's very useful, and we will come back to there after further discussions later on. So now let me bring in another angle into this digital technologies for waste management. For that, the presentation is role of digital platforms in material circularization. And I would like to invite Ms. Mayuri Aranavaran, co-founder and CEO of GEPP. So may I please invite Mayuri Aranavaran, and she has a quite intensive experience, including in France and Thailand. So over to you, Mayuri.
Hi, thank you, Mushtaq, for the introduction, and welcome the panelists and the participants. Please allow me to share my screen 1 second. So my name is Mayuri. I am the co-founder and CEO of a company called GEPP. The way we see waste is we call this the new solutions to the old problem. So what we're going to be talking about today is basically to share another side of the way we see the tools going forward for waste management. So this was me 8 years ago. I was on the oil and gas platform. That was my previous career before I founded myself a company that wanted to do completely opposite thing, which is to preserve the environment. So here we are. But before we kickstart, I think it's important for some of you who happen to be here in Bangkok or are currently elsewhere or have never been to Thailand before. The number shown on your screen now is the number of waste quantity that Thailand produces a day. So this is just to give you an illustration of the size of the problem that we deal with as a country. 3 years ago, when we started the company, almost 4 years now, we were called in a crisis. Our government called the national crisis in terms of waste management. We're still, unfortunately, the 6th largest polluter in the ocean waste. So this is the size of the problem. And in Thailand, just to simplify things, all of the waste is managed in 4 stages. One is the source of the waste, that's where we live. There's a collector or logistical arrangements to pick up our waste, and then it goes somewhere. We have a photo for you to see today as well, in terms of, for some of us who've never been to the dismantle or slaughter. And then depending on the types of the materials, some of them are marketable, they go into the recycling process. Some of them are not marketable, and sometimes it goes into, the municipality landfilling or incinerator. The problems that we see in waste management problem here in Thailand is the whole operation, the inefficiency in getting the pickup schedules. When it comes to recyclables, there's no price transparency. If you want to sell one, there's a lack of information in terms of when the pickup will be. If you live outside Bangkok, sometimes there is a schedule, fixed schedule collection, but if you live somewhere in the suburb, sometimes you don't. There's a pollution problem that arises from the illegal operations, such as sorting or dismantling in certain places. Sometimes you don't have the license to operate. And of course, the poor waste management in how yeah, when we talk about waste, it's somewhat inevitable that the infrastructure belongs to the government, and therefore there's somehow a room to improve that. So this is our going in assessment of how waste value chain is currently working in Thailand. And this is the photo of our garbage collection. So we see a lot of photo. This photo tells us a lot of how waste management is currently done here. So you will see that there are hanging bags over here. This is a truck with a hydraulic pump system that kind of compress the general waste into its container here. And as the officials collect the waste along the way, they do as much as possible to retrieve the recyclables and put them in these sacks. And whatever that cannot be sorted is in this truck. Where does it go? It comes to here. This is a photo that is myself standing in front of the new landfilling site. So you will see on the left-hand side, that's already the filled landfill. And we are drilling a brand new one over here. This is the level of the road, as you can see. The depth of this landfill is, I'm not sure if it's 10 to 15 meters down from the surface. And the whole site is about 22 rai. I'm not sure if someone could do a conversion for a more universal measurement for the international audience here. But my point is, I think it's about 8 acres or something like that. The size of this pit can take about 150,000 tons of waste, providing that it reaches the level of the road here, no mountaining as shown on the left. So in a nutshell, the amount of waste that Thailand is currently handling at 70K tons a day can be filled. Let me rephrase. This large pit landfill can be full in 2 days. So that's the size of the problem that we see. So we wonder how much land and how much waste will then take up, the country land that we currently live. So that's just to give you a picture of, how big the problem is from a different angle. When we look further, then we see the composition of the waste. And as the World Bank has studied it, a lot of waste that we found, about 40% are recyclables. And yet, when we look on the right-hand side, the recycling that we use today is about 14%. So there's clearly a gap here. So what's actually happened, right? So one will wonder what happened when, if you can determine the composition, then how come your choice of methodology in waste management is so little? And that opens to many questions. However, in our opinion, there are many roles to play to solve that gap. If we know there are 40% of waste that can be recycled, yet we recycle as so little, there are technologies that we can look into in terms of circularizing those materials back into, something more useful than landfilling or incineration. So on the left-hand side, when we see the roles of technology in CE, we see it with using two frameworks. Sorry for the pixel problem on the right here. But on the left, obviously, this is the waste management hierarchy. When we look at it, trying to close that gap, we can see that the technology can play into one of these 5 roles. First, what are the education points to prevent them from happening in the first place? Prevention here is about not creating waste. Same with reduction. So we have many platforms or technologies that encourage people here in Thailand not to generate more waste. We have a platform called refill stations. We're going to talk more about what I really mean about platform in the later slides, but basically the role of the technologies and the platforms here to us is about connecting the dots to fulfill the ultimate objective in each hierarchy of this waste management. So there's, an offline platform that put people together and connect people to use to reuse something, to reduce waste, and incentivize them to do so going forward. And I think thanks to Ms. Ono earlier that talked about various technologies that encourage people to recycle waste and collect waste. There's also another role that technology can play in terms of recovery. So here we're talking about if we cannot recycle it anymore, can we then put it into better use, such as waste to energy platform? Are there any systems in place that can recover those low value stream or low recyclability materials into, for example, RDF, refuse derived fuel stream before it reaches the disposal, because that's the last place that we want our waste to go. So this is one way that we have seen the technologies can get into in one of the boxes. Or on the other hand, we see that when we look at the circular economy of a product, the technology can then start from design, better service, or collect or recycle. Although these two ends, such as recycle, waste, reuse, and resources, on the surface seem really similar to the left one. In fact, based on our experience, they are slight differences. One, on the left-hand side, we could see a larger scale, regardless of brand, regardless of colors. For example, if we talk about some of like PET bottles, I'm just throwing an example here, there will be less conditions, I would say, if we see the technologies doing things to fulfill the role in the upside down triangle. However, in circular economy, there are specific terms and conditions where we see that, for example, we see a what's it called, like a reverse vending machine that can take only clear PET bottles, or the collection that kind of forces people to separate plastic waste into certain criteria that only such recyclers can then use and may not apply to other recyclers in a larger scale. So these are the two differences that we have seen based on our experiences when it comes to the top technologies in waste management, or in particular, in this case, circular economy. These are some of the examples that we've studied over the years, and we learned that when it comes to platform technologies, a lot of people think about a lot of techie stuff. So I just wanted to show some of the examples to show you that actually it doesn't have to be that way. Here is a Zen Robotics. So basically, it kind of provides the automatic sensor to things that are recyclables, and that saves us a lot of time. And I think as my previous presenter was saying about that, one thing the app tries to do is to increase recyclability. So this part of the platform, then after sensing the materiality of the product, it sends the big data to the cloud platform for further analysis and recovery of the material as well. Another technology in the circularization world would be for phones. So this is an Ecoatm X Gazelle. So if you have a phone, which is one of the problem here in Thailand, this is not in Thailand, obviously, but the concept is the same. It connects the people like you and me who have idle phones or non-functioning phones, and it aims to collect those electrical appliances and put them into the right hands. The right hands here mean the legitimate operators who have the right and know-how and environmental protection to dismantle your or my old mobile phones and recover, the minerals in there for better use and destroy whatever that is not recyclable in a proper way. So this is one of the way that this Ecoatm connects us with the recyclers directly. Another example would be something for consumers as well, but this is a smart bin that not only educates us which bins takes what material, but also it takes up give us the information that we need to sort waste better. So it connects us with the knowledge pool in terms of, what do we have to do to sort waste as site outside our house. So these are the bins that are placed in public and allow people to sort waste better, basically, while giving the information in a more visual way. Now, this is such a more complex platform. I think it summarizes pretty much all the things that I have said from the value chain perspective to the individual technologies that I just quickly show you. Track and Trace is a waste management software in the US, but basically what it does is connects everything out there to help an organization manage waste. So in America, I think some of you may know, unlike Thailand, waste collection is charged by weight. So the more sustainable the approach is, the better sorting they do there. It in fact has a positive direct benefits to the organization. So that means this Track and Trace allows its user to sort waste, have a weighting scale, the sensor, etc., and have the schedule pick up with the data reporting and analysis. However, what is not on the slide is that they can, in fact, sell the recyclables together with the software as well. So that means one way to look at the technologies on the platform is that you can go, one by one. If you want to do, if you're interested in developing the technology or solution or platform, you can go by one of these or one of these, just stay focused. Or you can do something similar to this that provides all-in-one solution and connects all the stakeholders and the systems involved. And this is another thing that is a platform, in our opinion, meaning that it connects the user from the bin to the one who operates the bin. So this is a sensor that alerts the status of the bin in the airport to the operation center. As you can see that they will tell you the fullness level. About 6, 4, 1, 2, 3 are the bins, and it will tell you how full the bin is, so that the operation center can optimize the collection route throughout the airport. So this OneWay is a platform that gives you the information and connects people to work better. Now, coming to Thailand. So all of those technologies are right now available in upcountry, but as far as Thailand is concerned, we have a couple of interesting cases here as well. One is in Thai is the collectors with the disappearing cash. Basically, this company is the owner of the page, Facebook page that connects people onto one-stop information about waste segregation. And you can write to him and ask for advice on how waste can be managed in your organization, etc. And they also provide like communications on drop points where you can find, specific drop points for your recyclables. On the left-hand side is Trash Lucky. So this one is a platform that allows people to win some, it works similarly to lottery tickets, lucky draw. So you have to buy their containers and send the recyclables that meet that specification to their center, and you will get a raffle ticket, and every month they will lucky draw, and if you happen to win, then you get some prizes from participating in the project. So that in fact connects directly with the users, and the recyclables that they receive, they send it directly to the recyclers. So it also completes the value chain that we discussed in the earlier slides. On the right-hand side here is called YOLO Zero Waste. So this is another platform that specializes in Thailand, we call it orphaned waste, which means this abandoned waste. Nobody takes these waste. And those include the PP or PS, some of the hidden HDP or LDPE products that not many recyclers take. So YOLO Zero Waste created this platform for you users to then send all of these for materials that you cannot send anywhere to them, and they will find a way within their network for you, or B, they recycle some of these themselves. So again, back to the value chain and the framework, that the way we see platforms and technologies is that 3 of them on the top focuses on filling up the gap in the value chain. They connect the dot. Either they become the dot themselves, or they connect the dot for the users. Coming down to the lower part here, you will see a photo of people and some of the beautiful location. But basically, this is a Thai social enterprise called TAC. TAC is an offline platform, I would say. Their job is to, again, connect the people to move themselves out towards the sustainable goal in waste management in communities in particular. So every time they go to a community, they will build a human-based platform in the community to drive the change in such community in terms of waste segregation, recycle bank, etc. So this is how we work in Thailand. And on the right-hand side is also another example of the platform. This is GPP, which is my company. We don't do any of those things. In fact, our platform focuses on data, data management for waste, data only, meaning in terms of the reporting and sustainability indexes and stuff like that. And we connect our users to the problematic recyclables so that whoever needs to recycle can have their waste type matched with the proper recyclers as they need to. So these are the examples that I put together in a very short presentation today. I hope that it inspires you guys to go out there and build some of the platform. Remember that in waste management, you are trying to provide a new solution to the old problem. And sometimes there is no silver bullet that will work for this long-standing problem. You cannot, I'm not saying that you should not, I'm just saying that focus is everything. And maybe by trying one, you may achieve to see more in the future. Remember that it has to connect the dots. There will always be gaps between the value chains that you are working. So find those gaps and try to connect the dots. If you can be the dots yourself, that would be awesome. But otherwise, the role of platform or technologies that work in this problem, always focusing on connect dots. Digital platform is just a tool without the hard work. The way we see this is that, as I mentioned in the previous slide, some of them are not even digital, but it works because there's actually work happened. So remember that there is difference between what you have tried to achieve to do and the tool that requires you to do the job. So last but not least, if you're planning to build a platform, you might be surprised that there are actually platforms or technologies that already take place. So look around first and ask yourself how you can become a part of that platform, without wasting more resources to do something duplicative. And maybe you can create an even better value chain if you, become the dot, or how optimize the existing platforms in your arena. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayuri, for mentioning that there's no silver bullet, but I see there are many colorful dots, and there's a lot of excitement for the youngsters to start the startups. So thank you on that note, and we'll come back for the discussion later. So now let me move. There's a slight change in the sequence. So now let me invite Mr. Teruyuki Kawano-san from Ecoatm. He's a CEO and founder, and then also with him will be the Yuichi Sasa-san from Ecoatm. He's IT project manager from Ecoatm. So over to you, sir, for your presentation on the practice of creating sustainable circular value chain. Kawano-san, onegai shimasu.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Good evening. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Teruyuki Kawano, CEO of a company called Ecoatm. At last year's trainings, I presented our plan for a new circular economy business model. And I would like to share our progress today. I hope you enjoy. Our mission is to develop a critical and right solution for circular economy. Sorry. As you know, global warming has become one of the most pressing issues. And we think there are two critical issues related to it. The first one is the shortage of natural resources. We consume much faster than the Earth can recover it. And the second one is the lack of our system is the resource circulation. Our economy model is still very much linear, and we are shortage the lifespan of natural resources. Due to such, we often see the overflowing waste disposal, especially in rural areas, even in Japan. With that said, our mission is to develop solutions for realized circular economy by promoting more reusing and recycling raw materials for reducing waste. We have 15 years of experience in waste management, but in very unique way. Firstly, we have a specific waste related data from our waste collection so far. And we do not just collect and recycling waste, but we priorities reusing by very dedicated sorting system. The expertise we will develop will be the key driver in pursuing our mission. Now, let me talk about our core service, which we call circular value chain. The circular value chain is the infrastructure that reduces the waste volume and the recycle of dispose of unavoidable waste properly and efficiently. It will require minimum natural resource and allow us to reduce our burden on the environment. This picture shows how acknowledge the circular value chain as infrastructure. The right blue circle shows our current business domain. In circulation, we rescue reusable items out of waste for further use. For unusable items, we recycle them into raw materials through our partners network. We need to remember that advanced IT systems are the key to support this circular infrastructure. This is firstly because of the labor shortage. As the waste volume grows dramatically, the efficiency on site is a critical challenge. Secondly, this is for data mining. We extract and interpret critical data, and we provide such data to our customers to help them understand the situation and discuss waste reduction measures. Through daily interaction with our customers in various industries, such as waste hauling, shops, municipalities, and the other type of business, we have noticed many challenges still lying ahead. For example, the waste hauling industry is overwhelmingly understaffed. In addition, there are traditional business practice specific to the industry, which makes the information collection very difficult. The work efficiency and visualization of process flow in urgent issue in this industry. Many municipalities and enterprises face an emerging task of achieving 2050 carbon neutrality in Japan. We believe it is our mission to develop the right solution to these issues. as they are key to the development circular economy. So now we would like to introduce two units of our business. So the first is called SEP, which is circular economy, a circular promotion. The SEP is to provide the right solution and proposal for our customers to adapt their business to contribute to zero carbon. Specifically, we are focusing on creating a wide variety of entrances into circular infrastructure and the connection of our customers with our recycling partners for rescuing waste. Our second business unit is called SET, which is Smart Environmental Technology. This is an IT systems-oriented business. The visibility in waste flow will differently expand the opportunity for circular economy. This system can collect a wide variety of information from the infrastructure and provides useful data to our customers in various formats. We will utilize SET data in the SEP business as well to make our proposals more accurate and reliable. This IT system is originally an in-house system incorporating Ecoatm's 15 years of experience and knowledge. This system is selected to handle the waste management of Japanese factory in Asian countries. An experimental trial is currently underway with local business in waste collection. Now, let us introduce how the system works at the waste collection site. When you set the box of waste on the scale, the weight data is automatically transmitted to the smartphone over Bluetooth. The GPS identifies the collected location. With some data automatically added, all information is uploaded to the cloud. Using this system, our customers can quickly issue various formats, including invoices through their computer. The extensive manual paperwork is no longer necessary. As the data is centralized, required paperwork can be done by the head office, regardless of the number of branches. In addition, this system will provide more detailed report, including the location, items, and the history of emission in the report. You can monitor the real-time emission status of waste from a single point or see history of data collection shop by shop, for example. With these reports, users can easily confirm their contribution level to carbon neutralization. This kind of information will enable easy planning for further efficiency and reducing of waste and carbon emissions. Our system is now being recognized in Asian countries. Waste management will be the key activity for the contributors that not be equipped with related waste regulation. We are now planning to develop an RFID interface and function to visualize the reduction amount of CO2 emission. Currently, 18 municipalities and more than 1,300 shops implemented this service in Japan. According to our data in 2021, we deleted 12,000 tons of waste from installation. Furthermore, we plan to develop a new contract with 30 municipalities and more than 100 retailer stores this year. We are looking for partners to achieve our mission together. Please contact us for further information and for discussion if interest. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Kawano-san, for enlightening us with the Ecoatm, which looks very practical and expanding to the Asian countries. So we will come back to the question answer in the later part after the presentations are over. So now let me move to Dr. Patrick Schroeder. So as in COVID, we lost the travel, but with the digital technologies, we connected very fast. So you saw that we moved from Thailand to Japan. Now we are from Japan traveling to UK. So Dr. Patrick Schroeder, may I please invite you for your presentation on the digital innovations for circularity. So we will see the examples from Europe and Africa. So Dr. Patrick, over to you, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I also have prepared a PowerPoint. I will share my screen, and I hope you will be able to see that.
Yes, we can see, but you can put in slideshow. Yeah.
Put in slideshow. Yes, great. Yes, thank you very much for again for inviting me today. So my name is Patrick Schroeder. I'm a senior research fellow at the Environment and Society program at Chatham House, and we follow policy, finance, and trade related issues and technology as part of that, as a cross-cutting issues for the circular economy transition. And just relating to this, let me start with some positive news that you might have also followed. So just very recently, earlier this month, the UNEA, the United Nations Environment Assembly, had its meeting in Nairobi, and very good news coming out of this conference was that the UN now has a mandate to advance an international plastics treaty, and that's very positive development for everyone working on waste-related issues. In particular, also because the scope of this treaty, or this treaty to be negotiated, the scope of this treaty will not just cover waste, but it will include the whole life cycle of plastics. So, which is an indication that it will require a different approach to plastics pollution, possibly also looking at the production volumes that have been projected. There's been other resolutions that come out of this meeting as well. So there's the establishment of an intergovernmental panel on chemicals. There's a resolution on the circular economy, which was promoted by the African group, and a whole range of other measures to address chemicals and waste. So that's very encouraging. And but I mean, related to this, looking at the value chain, it's clear that the circular economy requires a lot new lot more transparency. So there's been this trend, as you also all aware of, that the circular economy and digital technologies, and many of them have been mentioned already, Internet of Things, big data, AI, sensors, all of this is becoming increasingly integrated. And one reason for why this is important and why this is the way we need to go is because we currently have this massive gap or lack of data that we need to really create circularity across value chains. So all of this not only requires the digital technologies, but also company cooperation across the value chain. And especially going upstream, there are many small and medium-sized enterprises. And what's becoming increasingly relevant is also to develop the right indicators now for SMEs to be able to provide data on. So I think these are some trends that we've seen are developing. And we've seen then also that there are these new frameworks which are being now developed. So there's this integration of, as we increase data transformation levels, these are directly linked to resource optimization. So won't go into details, but these are really interesting frameworks that are becoming increasingly relevant. So I just wanted to mention this, that it's published last year by the World Economic Forum, and the buzzword that we hear a lot now is about traceability. So that's the context in which also the circular economy and digital innovations are being developed. So also, again, I won't go into the detail here, but these frameworks are really key to achieve the transformation that we need to see. And now coming to some of the research that we're doing at Chatham House. So this is a recent short paper that we published in Resource Conservation and Recycling, where we're talking about the circularity divide. Because we see the risk that there's, as we drive digitalization for resource efficiency and circularity, and also new value capture, value generation for businesses, that there's this divide opening up based on the existing divides, especially the innovation divide, but also the digital divide, that we see the lack of digital solutions in countries of the global south. So, so to really make the circular economy work globally in an inclusive way, we need to address those topics. Otherwise, there's going to be a split that where we see we see the high value opportunities of the circular economy captured by the actors and countries which have the digital solutions ready, and then low quality waste management done in countries where these technologies are not available. So that's something we need to address on the international level. And then I wanted to talk about some of the very specific projects that we're involved in at Chatham House, where we're working with partners in Africa to promote the uptake of these solutions. And actually the good news is there's a lot already happening in many African countries. So this project here, DITCH, was Digital Innovations for Transitioning to Circular Plastic Value Chain, was funded by UKI and the GCIF, the Global Challenges Research Fund. It was led by Muyiwa Oyinlola from De Montfort University, where we looked at a range of businesses across Africa who are using digital solutions already. And a couple of the companies that we've looked at, for example, was Recyclers in Nigeria. And so this is also the app, for example. It's very similar to some of the examples that Sayaka presented earlier. So it's a mobile app, and people can connect and order pickup of recyclables from their home, and the recyclers is using this also to optimize their operations. Another one that we looked at was Yo Waste in Uganda. Again, very similar. And here's some data in terms of the collections, etc. And we compared some of we had some case studies in the paper in some more detail. We picked those 3 out of about 2 dozens that we've looked at. I mean, one thing that's obvious is that all of these are still really still small initiatives, small businesses, but the potential for scaling up is significant. So there's lots of opportunities. For example, in terms of recyclers, what we found out, only about 2% of the plastic waste is currently being collected for recycling. So there's huge potential for scaling up. We identified a number of challenges as well, as you can see there. And we're trying to work on some of these projects now in a new project. Trying to work with these businesses in a new project which is funded by United Nations UNCTAD, Commission for Trade and Development, and UK Aid, the FCDO, has been funding a new project called Sustainable Manufacturing and Environmental Pollution. And one of the companies is called GIVO, again in Nigeria. GIVO is the acronym for Garbage In, Value Out. And GIVO has developed interesting technology, which is a decentralized center that can be placed in communities. So the product or the process is post-consumer plastic processed into various flakes or pellet recyclates. And so this is what a GIVO center looks like. And there's 2 already running in Lagos, and the goal is to scale these up into other cities across Nigeria. So it uses various digital technologies, and so the business model is data-led. There's also a link with communities and the waste pickers who are already involved in the collection and the recyclings. So here's some more information about how the data is being used, and then the various stages and how it's being processed, and also the final product. So it's being used into the shred plastic is pressed into various panels and also other products. So there's also consideration about the end product and how to market this. Currently, this is mainly marketed online, but there's also the goal to have some more specific retail outlets selling then those products. Just to have another graphic here I wanted to show from the World Economic Forum publication. So on the one hand, we do have the data and technology, which is developing really fast. There's these other elements that need to come together as well. The collaboration and partnerships, the standards and certifications, as well as the company operating model. So it's not only that we need to have this technology in place, but how to, again, what I mentioned at the beginning, how to make it work across the value chain, and also how to get standards which are internationally comparable or work internationally. And there's some work going on by ISO on circular economy standards. However, I'm not quite sure in how far those recent technology innovations are already included in those ISO standards. Finally, I wanted to mention something that's now happening, or that's being discussed very intensely at the EU level. And you probably have heard of this as well. These are digital product passports. So within these passports, what we have, what we will have, because they're currently still under development. So it could look like that you have products that are equipped with a QR code, and this code contains all the information about the material used, the technical characteristics, origins, and so this data is then verified through blockchain. So these product passports then, in theory, and hopefully in practice as well, will keep products and materials in closed loop and enable circularity. So again, the challenge here is that the traceability of the products and materials is complex. To succeed in implementing digital product passports, all the stakeholders need to come together, find a pathway forward. And I think the most advanced example is currently the battery passport, which is drafted in the EU battery regulation. So one of the first examples of where legislation actually requires such a digital product passport. So this will be a digital representation of the battery, and it's specifically for looking at EV batteries, obviously, and for other energy storage related applications relating to the energy transition. So all the ESG and life cycle related information will be contained in this. So that's, I think, the next stage of traceability that is important to watch, and quite exciting in terms of the technology and how this will hopefully be a step change towards higher degrees of circularity. And yeah, that's all for me. Thank you very much for your attention. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Patrick, for bringing that digital divide in focus, and also helping to bridge the digital divide in Africa also. So we will come back to the Q&A later. So now let's fly back from UK to Japan. And let me invite another very interesting presentation. For that, Mr. Benjamin Butcher is from the Global Business Unit of the NEC Corporation. And for Benjamin, the title is Smart Cities and Extended Producer Responsibility, How Artificial Intelligence and Data for a Better Marine Pollution Policy Without the Human Eye Can Be Used. So over to you, sir, Benjamin.
Hello, thank you. You caught me out. I thought I was the next presenter, but I'm ready to go. Can you see my slides? Are they coming up?
No, we swapped before you, so you are at your point. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. One of the problems of coming towards the end of a presentation is that there's a lot of, at the end of a session, a lot of very good presenters who've come before and covered a lot of the points, but I'll try and make this interesting and bring out a few interesting points. So hello, my name is Benjamin Butcher. Pleased to meet you. I work in Tokyo. I work for NEC, and I'll be looking at looking at this topic from the point of view of a private company and an enterprise, and how we're looking at this in particular, how it relates to sort of data and the data angle on this. Okay, so if my slides will move for me. Here we go. NEC, for those that you don't know, we're a Japanese company. We were founded in 1899, so we're quite old. We do So that's in yen, it should be in dollars. We do about, not quite, but nearly $3 billion in revenue a year. We've got about 300 companies around the world. So we're in most places. We are very much a technology company. We admit that. We're a lot of, we love technology, we love new things, and we love building technologies. So we very much focused on the R&D side of things. We have a huge amount of patents and our employees. And a lot of our philosophy is building, taking those technologies and applying them to solve the problems of our customers, like many companies, but we particularly start from the technology point of view. These are some of the examples. I work in a group called the Global Relations Division. So our focus is not just on making huge amounts of profit, but we're also creating social value. What that means is very often we're looking at maybe sort of more long-term challenges, something where there may not be an immediate profit incentive or something like this, but we can see that this is creating good social value. And we think it's particularly if there's something where we have a technology where we think we can solve a problem which will bring value in the long run. So a few examples here, top left-hand corner, with sort of e-money solutions, which sort of grew out of the work that we do on the sort of the train card solutions. Top right-hand corner, this is quite a new one that's maybe just a little bit of press recently. Working with Gavi to sort of develop vaccination programs based on infant fingerprints. So children under 5, it's very difficult to get fingerprints because they're very small and cute, and so are the ridges on their fingers. So under 5 is very hard. Under 1 is nearly impossible, but we're working on that. Bottom right-hand corner, one that I'm sort of working on is we have a sort of agreement of cooperation with the ICRC, and we're sort of picking up just topics and challenges. They like to give us something that's very challenging. So we're looking at using AI to tackle, to detect mines, landmines, post-conflict. Also looking around we're joining in a discussion around the ethics of biometrics and things like this, how you can use them in various situations such as the ICRC are faced with. So what we're trying to do is take the technologies that we have and apply them to some quite unique situations. Now, for microplastics, this is a huge problem. I think everyone's sort of stated so far about the problem: 300 million tons, a lot of it ending up in the ocean and the seas. One of the things I think that we have to face, though, is that plastics are integral to our society. Our societies, it is such a huge problem because we love our plastics, and most of our society, whether it's just simple consumables, or whether it's more important needs, plastics are very useful, plastics are very beneficial. Now we see the effects of this. Nowadays, most people are aware of the effects of plastics. You see this on television, you see graphic images on the news and things like this. We know it's affecting marine life. Increasingly, it's affecting industries. People are starting to see that, tourism, fishing, but increasingly other industries as well, are starting to see that plastics will start to affect them. And people are, when it starts to challenge the supply chain for food, for water, purity, and people start to worry about this, this is a very hot topic. And one thing that, as I said at the beginning of this, we're sort of looking at data and how data is used. Now, data in itself is not very useful. Data is only useful if it's applied to action and policy. It can make your actions, as we saw from Patrick's previous presentation, was very much talking about this. Data, when it's focused in the right way with standards and linked to policy, it can make better policy. So here we have the policy cycle, identifying the problem, and this is probably where we are at the moment. We know there's a problem, but actually defining the problem, everyone having the same understanding of the problem, and actually being able to see the problem. As data companies, we like to see everything in real time. We do not have that ability at the moment. Policy formation, if you're setting up a policy, you have to have proof that this problem exists. What is the impact of this? Why do we need to change? You need evidence to back up your arguments for making policy. Implementation, putting it into practice. Even this requires data. What are you actually doing? What are being the effects of this? A lot of what we're talking about, a lot of the traceability of waste management today. This would be an excellent example of how we can have this to help us bring in sort of the sort of data we gathered around policy implementation. But but also evaluation. You set up a policy. This is going to fix the problem. But did it actually fix the problem? Yes or no? How well? How badly? How can we improve on this? For all of this, we need data. Now, one of the things that with microplastics, but especially microplastics, which is an area I'm looking at the moment, is we don't see this. We're aware that that about 10 million tons of plastics flows into the sea. Some of it floats on the top, and we can measure that, and we can take samples and estimate it. But most of it is in places that we can't see, we can't get to. The sea is very big, as well as being very wet. Now, increasingly, we are taking samples. We go out. People are going out into the sea, taking samples, getting samples from sediment. Then when they run through this, you then have to sort of take out all the inorganic substance, and then you're counting it. You're counting it with a microscope, usually people with a pin and their eyes looking at this. And so at the beginning of this, we did go for the longest title of everyone. We thought that would make it our presentation look impressive if we had the longest title, and I think we won there. But as I said, we're trying to do, one of the things about data is you're trying to get the human eye out of this. But we are now, with monitoring certainly microplastics, very much in the area of still having the human eye being involved in this, measuring the samples. The presentation earlier, and sorry, I forget the presenter's name, of was in Thailand, where she was showing that they were using cameras to, I believe, to sort of measure the waste as it comes and identify waste. There's many examples here. This is the sort of thing that we'd like to be doing here, because it's only by doing that, by getting the human eye out of there, by automating these processes, that we can scale up. So sending one person, a few people out into a boat to get some samples and come back, that is good. That's helping us to identify the problem, but it's not scalable. And if we really want to get to be on top of this problem, we need to be getting data in real time, many, many different sources, and in many different ways. And that means something that's automated. Now, I'd just like to give, sorry, I have hay fever, so I'm going to be coughing at certain points throughout this presentation. I'd like to present two areas of technology, and this is not to sell these areas of technology, but just as examples. Now, the first one that I'm showing here, this is something that NEC developed in cooperation with JAMSTEC, the Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology, to try and look at microplastics in the ocean. Now, rather than taking samples, filtering them and counting them by hand, how could we then use AI and other technologies to be able to count this? So we developed a technology as a way of doing this, with where you take a sample, you're putting it, then as you take a sample whilst it's in the water, in the solution, you're adding a dye to that. That dye will stick to certain types of plastics. And then with those plastics, you use a microscope, a fluorescent microscope, which will recognize those plastics. As it then passes through a tube, you can then use image recognition process and AI to capture this in real time. So what you can be doing is in taking sort of a flow of water from out of the ocean, and then in real time be gathering this. Now, we're not quite at real time yet. I will be clear on this. This is still at the research level. But what we are able to do is have a machine that is counting these from a sample, and quite large samples, automatically. Now, there are, I do want to say, this is one of the things why this sort of technology is important, is this allows us to scale up. So something, once we have the machines learning how to do this, they can scale up. However, every solution, as has been said by many people before, there is no silver bullet. So this is a great technology if you want to get a large amount of data and look at samples very quickly. But if you want to know what kind of plastics you're dealing with, that becomes a little bit more complicated. So by using different dyes or something, there's a possibility to do it like that, but that will take more speed, will reduce the speed. So also you have to teach the AI to do this. You need a lot of data and samples, and the AI can always be improved to be more, but as a way of finding out how many samples are in the ocean, if you want to be taking samples on quite a large scale and consistently counting them, this is an excellent technology. So this is just one example I want to show, is how the next step is to find processes and technologies for counting these microplastics, something like microplastics, and automating it. The next one I want to introduce this is not particularly an NEC technology, this is the smart cities. Now, smart cities have been around, the concept of smart cities has been around for a long time. Smart cities are starting to be implemented. They haven't taken over the world quite as we expected, but they are gaining. Smart cities are, it's not a single technology, but it's a way of gathering a lot of data across a very large area, such as a city, hence the name, and bring it together. So the picture we have here is of the smart city. Fireware is one technology and architecture you can use to be gathering information from many, many different sources. So now typically in cities, transport, environmental data, security information, energy, waste management data, these can all be integrated into the game. Now what this does, it allows the city to have data, excuse me, have data from many sources, combine it together and to get an overall picture of the city. Now, this is useful because it allows you to gather data from different sources. For example, I used to work on transport, where we were gathering information, a lot of information from the buses. Now, it's not just how well your buses are moving around the city, how much CO2 are they producing, how you can, then you can start looking at how you can optimize this to reduce the CO2. And I think smart cities, the one thing I have to point out is smart cities are not just about cities. Smart cities can be used in small campus situations. They can be used on a country scale. They can connect different areas. Initially it was called smart cities, but these technologies can be applied anywhere. And I think what we need to be looking at is not just how we gather data, which is an important challenge, but how do we combine that data to make it open and shareable so that everyone can benefit from this, that we can produce best practice, we can accelerate standards so that everyone's working. If the technology is different, that's fine, but we need the same data to be gathered. But also things like data sovereignty, who owns this data, because privacy, because data can be used in many different ways. And if people are going to share their data, they will want to know that their data is safe. But I also think this is important because, and again, unfortunately, smart cities is not the greatest name because it makes people think this is only for cities. But we can have smart oceans, where instead of having all the buses driving around the city, we can have all the boats that are passing across the ocean, automatically picking up samples and processing that data so we can see it, combining satellite imagery into this area, and combining data with information from the rivers to the cities. These sort of cities, now in a city it's easy because you have one entity that owns a city, usually it's a city body. When we start talking about oceans, these are between countries and borders, and it becomes a lot more difficult. But what sort of platform will we have? I just want to give you one quick example of that we had with the smart city, which is why I put in our smart citizens the most powerful tool of change. And this is a bus and a transport image, but one city, it was Singapore, they set up one of the best systems for managing their buses, very efficient, and they wanted to contract with their bus companies. So they set up all these KPIs to manage their bus companies and things like this. Then the news, and this data was available, but no one really looked at it apart from the people in the bus industry, until one day the newspapers started publishing this. Now they started publishing these KPI, which is fine because the city was making fantastic, but occasionally when they don't hit their targets in the KPI, it was published in the newspapers, and citizens got angry about this. And it changed, and it made a huge change and actually had political influence. And that was just one example of how making this data available so that people can see it and it becomes understanding. Citizens, not only as we've seen many examples, gathering data, but also being able to see the data, and then they can become a part of the political change. Okay, final page before I end. I talked about employee response as a producer responsibility, and what I wanted to talk about here was, as I say, as we gather more data and we have more visibility, and we can see this with producers and manufacturers already, they have a great deal of visibility into their production system and their distribution system. They know where their products are going. They know where they're from the factory, from their suppliers, all the way through to the shops. In many countries, they're able to do this. And there's been a lot of innovation in this area. Some of this has been mentioned already. The next stage is to extend this to waste. Now, there's environmental monitoring and things like this. But the same knowledge and experience can be connected to this distribution. but also then further as we go to this, the consumption and the waste afterwards. Now, producers as a producers have a huge responsibility. They produce this stuff, but it is the consumers who motivate them to do this. So when we're talking about EPR and extending producer responsibility, I think it's also necessary to remember that there is a lot of there is a lot of experience in how to do this. These companies have experience of delivering traceability, not just in the developed countries, but in every country where they want to sell their products. They are very good at matching this to matching it to their markets and to their needs. Also, there's a lot of experience in technology, and I think some of these can be used. For example, we've mentioned before about product passports. Product passports already exist for products. Manufacturers can know basically anything they want to do. They can trace parts and things like this. But if they're willing to share this data, which is quite sensitive because it's how much they're producing is sensitive to them, we will need systems that allow them to share their data whilst maintaining sovereignty of the data and being also protective of this. So data is something that can solve a lot of problems. Data can help close the loop for recycling, as I say here, but it will face, whether it's for waste, plastic, face the same issues that it has so far when we're trying to deliver smart cities and when we're delivering solutions, the issues of privacy and how it's used. So I think I've run over slightly, but I will just, so I'll quickly finish. So plastic pollution is a huge one. Being able to see the problem is one of the main issues, and data is part of that solution. Gathering that data in a scalable way and in a way that can be spread, that many people can use, making that democratic so people can see the data, but linking it to policy and action is key. Private enterprise already has many of these solutions. So ERP is not about blaming producers, but about working with them to bring their knowledge and experience into the public policy arena. Thank you very much. I hope some of this is useful, and I look forward to the discussion after this. I will hand back to head office.
Thank you, Benjamin, for bringing citizens science, citizens data, citizens digital technologies, and with some interesting insights on the smart cities and marine environment. So now, before we head to the Q&A, can I please request all the panelists and hosts who have access to turn on their cameras to please turn on your cameras so we can have a group photo. And I have requested also Sayaka Sateki to take a photo, but also the secretariat. So I think Sayaka can count 1, 2, 3, go or something. Ichini, go. So.
Okay, so yeah, can I start to count? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. One more, please. 1, 2, 3. Yes, done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So now, panelists, can you please keep your cameras on? I will not put any slide or anything on the screen. So it's more like an interpersonal interaction. So now there are 3 questions anyway in Q&A, which you all can access. But in addition to that, I want to put 3 questions, and then I will give everyone like 3 minutes each to respond. And you can pick either one of 3 or all 3 combined together. So the first question is that, what is the role of digital technologies? Can you please remove the slide from the screen? We want to see the faces. I will read the questions, and I think all the panelists have the questions. Thank you. So what is the role of digital technologies to improve efficiency and efficacy of waste management systems based on 3R, reduce, reuse, and recycle? Number 2 is, what are the challenges and bottlenecks to promote digital technology options in waste management system, especially from industrial point of view? The 3 is how can digital technology tools can contribute to the vulnerabilities of waste management in developing countries? And the 4th question I had is for Ecoatm, is that the serious labor shortages. So how we can make this business attractive and colorful to bring the excitement for the youth to get involved in this. So these 4 questions on table in addition to the 3 there. So we go one by one, and we can, though I think we can start from as in we had a sequence. So Sayaka first, and then Mayuri second, then we can go to the Patrick, and then Kawano-san, then we can go to Benjamin. Okay, so Sayaka, over to you first. 3 minutes.
Yes. So I'm gonna answer the first question. What is the role of digital technology to improve the efficiency and efficacy of the waste management systems based on serial? Basically, there are several laws, of course, but I like to mention the 3 points. First, digital technology can capture the waste plastics before its leakage. For example, the example which I mentioned, the digital apps can help informal sectors to sell their products to the recycler. And then the second point is it can help to monitor the plastic waste. For example, like NEC's examples, also they can monitor the microplastic in the sea. Like those examples, we can use digital technology to monitor the plastic waste after the leakage. And then the last point might be the optimization of the plastic waste management. For example, the example which I mentioned in the presentation, the application used in the Australia, it can provide the useful information which help to connect the waste generators and the recyclers. Then it can increase the efficiency of plastic waste management by connecting the different stakeholders. And then for the question about how digital tools contribute the vulnerabilities of the waste management in developing countries, especially in the developing countries, I like to focus on the informal sector's perspective, because in developing countries, include the informal sector into the formal institution or formal waste management system is one of the key important aspects in the waste management, I think. So that kind of that kind of situation can be dealt with digital application or digital technologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sayaka. So now let's move to Mayuri, please.
Sure. I think when it comes to technologies, from our experience, first it educates people. For Thailand's context, when we did our MVP, we found out that when it comes to waste management, people really do not know the right things or the right way to do so. So when it comes to technologies that we see, it first educates people. Secondly, it accommodates the data usage better. For example, we talk about data, waste data. There is, in the past, there was not much of how the data is collected, analyzed, and used in a digital platform or digital world, right? So now we see those trends are happening in our country also. And I think then largely with that data set being available to most of the people or stakeholders in the value chain, it definitely moves the stakeholders to work differently and therefore more efficiently. You see discussions among recyclers. Now, sometimes they may have to bypass some of the middlemen, something that they always wanted to do, but they could not do before. But then with the introduction of technology, the data that gets fed to them, they start to have more productive conversation with those suppliers in a way. So I think these are the three things that I see in terms of the technologies play out to increase the efficiency in my country, at least. I think the second question, just to recap, on the bottlenecks Man, there are a lot. So I think the system in developing countries, I hope that one day Thailand will get out of this status, because since I was young, we are always developing. We want to tell the world that Thailand is developed in a way. We see the informal sector, as Ms. Ono had discussed in this part of the world as well. The way I see it is that this is going to get less and less. More things will get consolidated, and we should see, and I think we will see less and less informal sectors, but we will see more and more middle-sized aggregators playing in the role because of the efficiency that the systems have improved because of the technologies. Unless these informal sector adapt to the technology that is used to facilitate the trade of the recyclables, or the sophistication level of the users or the consumers that demand things to change, those people cannot survive in the trades anymore. So I think that because of the evolution in technologies, informal sector will be less, more medium-sized and large aggregators will gain their share. And then the bottleneck will become the infrastructure. And that belongs to the government, because you can do so much unless we change the legislation structure. Currently in Thailand, the collection and management belongs to the government decision. If you look in Europe, this collection and management can be more efficient when it becomes privatized. Because when the private sector comes in, they have to do things efficiently to keep their costs down and their profits up. So they talk about optimal routing schedules and logistics and things like that. Some things that the government or the municipalities may not have the KPIs for. So therefore, they're not driven to do things in a profitable way, and therefore efficiency is unfortunately in loss right now. So I think to solve the next problem, we have to change the legislative structure in terms of the waste management, who will be able to do this, who is the best person to do this. And second is the infrastructure. Bins in our country are still sorting wet and dry. Something as simple as that is across the country. How can we then improve such thing to be in the same pace as the sophistication of our users now? People start to segregate 7 types of waste, 27 types of plastic in Bangkok today. But when we look around, there's still 2 types of bins, wet and dry, green and yellow. So how can the government, evolve with us and then do things differently? And I think the last one will be the incentive for private sectors, again, coming from the government. We're talking about EPR scheme. I think one of you guys mentioned that. So we're still not in the mandatory EPR. So something as this could really change the landscape of how people react to waste management from a larger scale, because now users are more aware, right? And they want to see changes. So those would be my input to your questions, Mushtaq.
Thank you, Mayuri. Very helpful. So now let's move to Patrick, please.
Yeah, just very briefly, from my side, I think based on the projects that we're involved in, the issue of informal sector inclusion is also one of the topics that we're looking at when it comes to how do we improve collection rates, etc. So and how to use the digital technologies in a way that they're also socially inclusive. So that's, I think, one of the topics that are relevant in our projects at the moment. Maybe I can just briefly also cover the third, a question that was posted in the chat. Huang Duang was asking about human health and using shredded plastics for maybe relating to this slide I showed on the boards. Obviously, I mean, that's obvious, needs to be considered human health issues. And that's an area where also standards, product specifications need to keep up. The standards for used for products using recycled content, etc. There's a lot of work to be done in this space, but this may be also an area where digital solutions can help, product passports, etc., about the chemical composition of various materials, what kind of additives are in there, and that's often not very well known. So obviously we don't want to recycling and reusing toxins, but I hope digital information systems can help to provide some more clarity what's in those recycled materials. And apologies, I need to drop off to another meeting. Thank you again for inviting me today. It was I learned so much from you. I hope we can keep in touch and exchange also in the future.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. So now let's move to Kawano-san and Sasa-san.
Yes, so let us talk about the bottleneck and challenges regarding the waste management system throughout the DX journey. And I'll touch on the fourth item, which is the resource shortage. So starting on the question number 2, so far we have not encountered absolute bottleneck or sort of like showstopper in terms of social, legal, or institutional aspects. However, except for our internal resource shortage accompanied with our company growth, we are really looking for resources at this moment. But because data for waste management is coming from collection sites and the processing yard, we are really keen on the design of the system in terms of user friendliness to make it really working. Earlier, Mayuri-san mentioned the education of the people in terms of technology, and we totally agree to that. And our current approach is to really design tools. We are really keen on designing system in terms of to avoid exclude dependencies on individual skills and knowledges to the possible extent. Because, for example, we have low retention rate on the on-site workers because the site is, hasty, dangerous, sometimes dirty, stinky, etc., and we're not paid compared with the, other industries possibly. And workers on sites are wearing gloves, masks, and like I said, working potentially hasty, dangerous environment. We aim to make things hands-free, leveraging technologies like GPS system, QR code, RFID, Bluetooth scales, and voice and image recognitions. Those are the approach to the bottlenecks. And I will touch on the first question. Serious labor shortage in our waste industry. In terms of Ecoatm's business and strategy development, our employees are very into what we do, really, and we have high retention rates, especially the younger generation, since SDGs have got attention to the world. However, on-site laborers is kind of different story because their job includes dirty and potentially dangerous activities, while they are not well paid compared to similar jobs in other industries. As a result, job application is limited and retention rate is not really high enough. We think our user-friendly technology may lower the administrative burden of them and help change image of the job. For example, providing collection route guidance for the new driver and cut daily work report by automatically feeding the data. We think it'd be a good idea to show them their achievement in the context of carbon reduction, etc. So those are our ideas at this moment.
Thank you. Thank you, yeah, thank you, Sasa-san. And you note the digital technologies because mic of Kono-san was used, so he was in the spotlight while Sasa-san was talking in the background. So, so thank you very much. So now let's move to Benjamin, please.
Thank you.
Again, coming at the end, I think most people have covered most of the key points. So maybe I'll go for the third question: how to make this appeal to the young. And as the young person on the board, I will answer on charge of this. I mean, there's a couple of things. One I think is doing things like this. I mean, this sort of event. You've got a lot of looking at all the faces here. We've got a lot of young, sexy people talking about waste management and being passionate about it. And I think as a topic, it is very interesting. Mushtaq, at the beginning of this, and of course, you also represent the young generation. No offense there. You said that it's about getting young people to teach their parents, which I thought was a very, very interesting point. And it's the sort of message that we want to get out here. But a lot of it is, I think, is if you look at social media, these sort of things are very, very effective, but they can also be, as we've seen in our modern society, it can be an excuse not to do anything. And I think when we had something like Pillika, which is a company we've sort of known a little bit, and Ono-san presented in her presentation, is just one example, but there's many companies where you're going out and you have the connection between social media, but also action, going down and actually collecting things. And those sort of solutions are very, very good. So this is me trying to talk about what to do about the young people. I'll give up now because I'm not young. The other topic, the other second question, which I think maybe I have a bit more to say about, is the bottlenecks. I mean, any sort of new industry, new domain, I mean, it's not new, but it's sort of changing. You're going to have issues. And for example, within, I mentioned smart cities. Smart cities, I started working on smart cities 15 years ago, and they were going to take over the world in, in 3 years, and and they haven't yet. They're getting there, they're getting slowly, but there's always resistance. And if you're sort of talking about data and opening up data, sharing knowledge, best practice is a fantastic way to do it. But there's always reasons why people don't want to share data. I made this point at the end with sort of producers. They have huge amounts of knowledge and experience and data that we need. But they are, for example, I imagine most producers wouldn't want their competitors knowing their daily or monthly production rates, because that shows how they're doing, if they're growing or they're not growing. This data can be used in different ways. So how you handle the data and data sovereignty, privacy, and things like this will always be necessary. And maybe it is. I think it was Ecoatm mentioned resources. Resources is also very, very important, and we can always do with it. We always do with more money, but also risk and taking the risk out of that. Because when you have some excellent companies like who are sort of like Ecoatm, who are sort of starting, and they're sort of creating this field and designing the business models, and they're taking the risk. And of course, the reward will come in a few years when they're all millionaires and driving around in Ferraris and all of these things. And we'll remember that they were our friends. Yes, yes. And remember us, and we'll go to their wild parties. But they are taking the risk at the moment. And so it is tough, as they mentioned, the resources, but how can we support them and take some of the risk out of this? Now, money is one way to do that. But just supporting and promotions, which is, again, where I think these sort of events are very useful, because it helps people to know who's in the community and who's doing what. I also think one thing is I'm quite new to this area of plastic pollution and things like this, but it has a very strong bottom-up feel to it, because and I think that's something that needs to be maintained. So standards and all of these things are important, and governments getting involved. But once it becomes top down, it can become very rigid. But keeping everyone involved from a bottom up perspective, actually doing action and things like this. And I gave the example of data being available, and the bus companies in Singapore, all their data was made available, and suddenly citizens were saying, well, your KPIs are dropping, you're not hitting 97% in this, and this became a political issue. Now, most people probably didn't understand the data, but it was people actually taking activity. And I think when we're talking about data, we often talk about data between the governments, the industries, and things like this, but making this available to the citizens so that they can contribute data, but also that they can be saying, well, no, I don't want this, and I don't want my government to be putting money into this. The democratization of data is a very good way to break some bottlenecks. So, okay, from the young part of the panel, that's my opinion.
Thank you, Benjamin. Now, all of us are young. There's a child in all of us who longs to play. And as you may know, that today is White Day, 14 March. So Mako-san is baking the cookies, because the digital cookies are not accepted by young people like us. So we will receive from Mako-san the cookies. But on that note, I think it was very interesting, very helpful. And thank you very much, all of you and all the participants. And as this has been recorded, so I think this will be promoted at much larger scale and scope. So my only request to all of you to please keep in touch, and let's work together and make this really sort of helping each other as we are young. And so we have a duty to do that. So at that note, please enjoy your evening and take care, and see you again very soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.